Hello and welcome to our Saturdays with Tara Hangout on Air. I'm Rachel at the Law of Attraction Club on the web at theloaclub.com. These hangouts are our collaboration with our friends Tara. This hangout is our summary of the theme for the week and continues on our member conference line with live Q&A. Today's topic is Death and the Law of Attraction. You can get invites to our open calls, which we offer periodically, as well as our powerful letting go process by going to the loaclub.com. So now we're going to welcome Tara, who will be coming through Robin, and we welcome them all. And over to you.
Welcome. We are delighted to be with you. This week we were planning to talk a little about the concept of time, and then on one of our calls the subject of death came up. So we thought, since the time subject is one part of the death subject, why not tackle the bigger topic and see if we can cover more of your questions. So welcome to this intersection, this touch point where our worlds have merged, where for a brief moment in time, we all seem to be operating together in the same realm. Of course, what seems to be happening and what's really going on are two different things. And that's the essence of our discussions here today. Your realm, like our realm, is part of the personal virtual reality each of us is creating. Our realm is timeless and spaceless, whereas you have chosen a time continuous and space continuous physical reality. Your realm is a highly focused world. It's an exciting game, and you've dived into it for the fun of being stimulated with new desires and responding to those desires by creating new and wondrous things. But as you engage with this game, you forget who you are. Just for a minute here, see if you can imagine what it's like to be timeless, to be able right now to stop the clock, and to be, for example, in your story at any age, or even at all ages at once. It's not easy, is it? Being involved as you are in this game of yours, you start to see yourself only as you exist in this realm. And so when you contemplate death, and you all do, it seems like an end. And you cannot imagine yourself in other realms. And since death is simply a move from one realm to another quite different realm, you cannot imagine what death will be like. So then you become fearful of it. And then you start to create a huge attachment to life. And then life ceases to be the fun game you came to play. What's inherently difficult about this death topic is that when you think about making new choices, choosing new expectations that create new things in your world, most of you confine those choices to worldly things. You think of more money, or a more healthy body, or a better relationship. You're usually not thinking of options outside of space and time, and death is one of those options. Death is simply a choice to step into a different version of you that is outside of the space-time game you've been playing. It's switching to a new sort of virtual reality. The concept is simple, but imagining that new you in a new context can be not so easy. And that's why describing it in language has its challenges. But here we go. What is this death thing after all? What happens to the different versions of us? Let's start by contrasting what's quote unquote real, what's permanent and always true no matter what, absolute, fundamental of everything and not a choice, with what's unreal, quote unquote, or virtual, what's temporary and illusory, the story you've made up and you're always at choice about. So here's what's not a choice and never changes. And as we use time-based words like never and always and eternally, recognize that we're talking about timelessness, because as long as time exists, there is no eternity. At your essence, you're a consciousness, a part of and eternally, timelessly connected to the collective consciousness of all that is. You're pure positive energy. And we only use the word positive to assure you that there's nothing negative about the essence of you. Your choices create you. Your new limitless choices create new versions of you. You exist in infinite versions. Each version has its own matching context. New choice always equals new context. So you are the creator and the experiencer and the chooser, and therefore the creator, the new experiencer, and new chooser. So are we. So is every individuated conscious entity. You have chosen this particular shape for your consciousness, which is to say, you've focused your thinking machine into perceiving only one version at a time. You've focused yourself into the particular you that has the particular story that you exist in a space-time world. This is your context because of those choices you made. If there are limits in that context of yours, they exist because you chose them. So that's what never changes. And here's what's temporary. Here's what you've chosen and can choose to change. You can change the shape of your consciousness. You can change the shape of the physicalness that is you and the space-time world around you. You can change the shape of the spiritual, non-physical world around you. You have chosen the shape of us, even as we have chosen the shape of you. You have chosen to be human on a round Earth planet in a solar system. You have chosen it to be in 2017 with all that goes with that point in time. And within all of that, you have made a gazillion other choices, some unique to you, some shared with some shared with many. And perhaps you have chosen to believe you will die. So let's talk about what dying means. And let's recognize that even as you quote unquote die, the things that are essentially true about you and never change still do not change. Your belief choices, your expectations create you. And the decision to die, to transition, is a choice. Where and what you be after that transition will be where and what you expect death to lead to. But whatever or wherever that is, you remain a timeless, spaceless, eternally connected, infinite consciousness. If you expect to leave the physical, you will. If you expect to return to source, you will. And if you expect to be able to be conscious of both those versions rather than just one, as now, your consciousness will expand and you will. There are no limits here except what you choose. As Abraham said after Jerry Hicks' transition, in the urgent clinging to what you call this life, there is a defiance of your understanding of the eternalness of who you are. And when you let go of that, there is release into alignment. There's a release into this grid of who you are that defies anything you've ever lived before. In other words, depending, of course, on what you're choosing to expect, you're going to let go of, step out of, the space-time story and into the infinite possibilities that are an inherent part of who you are. To continue with what Abraham said, Jerry, as he found that vibrational place, said to Esther, I want you to know that one of two things can happen. Either the medical team are going to figure this out and I'm going to bounce back into my physical body feeling good, or they're not going to figure this out and I'm going to re-emerge into non-physical. And in either case, I want you to know I'm good. And Esther said, well, good for you. I'm only good with one of those options. And we said to Esther, Jerry is the only one who gets to choose. Jerry is the only one who gets to choose. From Jerry's perspective, of course, those words are true. But by law of attraction, Jerry, with his choices, cannot assert into Esther's experience that for which Esther is not a match. The elephant in the room question that's not being addressed here, was Esther not at choice about this? Well, about her world, of course she is. There's nothing she cannot be, do, or have. So, of course, she chose whether Jerry transitioned. To understand what's going on here, we first have to recognize that in one version of reality, Jerry transitioned, and in another version, he got better. So that question can only be answered from the perspective of each person involved, including you. In this particular version we're discussing, Jerry chose to transition. And the medical team, and Jerry, and this one, and all of you in this particular version are a match to that choice of Jerry's. Let's give you another analogy. When you wake up from a dream, it's a change of realities. You inherently know that this waking reality is more quote-unquote real than the dream because it's a match to the conscious you. When you transition, it will be like waking up from that dream, and you will inherently recognize it as more real than the space-time reality you stepped out of because it's a match to the new version of you created by your choice to transition. The context that always surrounds you is always a match to the version of you're inhabiting. And it's always going to feel more real than the dream you stepped out of. So you will, quote unquote, know your new realm is more, quote unquote, real than the one you left. So you all have expectations about death. Just see them for what they are and recognize that in this, as in all things in your story, you are at choice. We recommend also that you recognize that although you may have some strong ideas about how you want it to be and who you want to see on the other side, when your perspective changes, you may very well make some different choices. And that's absolutely okay. Everything is possible and everything is okay. All is well. Death is a choice just like any other choice. That's as it should be. Choice is your middle name. Choice in everything is what it's all about, and it always was. So think about yourself here and now. What do you, quote unquote, know about the physical you? In your mind, describe yourself to yourself. Then allow your mind to acknowledge that this, quote unquote, knowing is what creates you. Good. Then, what do you, quote unquote, know about the non-physical you? In your mind, describe your non-physical self to yourself. Then allow your mind to acknowledge that this quote unquote knowing is what creates the greater you. Good. Then, to the extent that you can, allow your awareness to start to see and feel and experience the much bigger you, the timeless you, the absolutely no limits you. That part of you that extends all the way back to source. Good. Let's finish here with some ways about thinking about death that might help. Death is not an end to anything but one version of you. Death is what you make it to be. It's no big deal unless you make it a big deal. Death is always a choice. Where you go, what you see, etc. Death is not the end of communication. It's a change in how you communicate. Death is like going to sleep in one reality and waking up in another. Death is not a forced transition of you as you are into some strange place. Death is an opening up of your consciousness. It's you knowing yourself at a higher level. And at that level, you simply create a different realm around you. It's you stepping from a particularly focused realm to another realm in which you know yourself to be different. It's the knowing, quote unquote, that instantly recreates you. And now we move to our longer discussion and your questions.
This hangout on air was the summary of our theme for the week. We do 3 live calls a week with live Q&A for our members on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You too can become a member by going to theloaclub.com/join. So now on to our longer discussion on the Q&A line for our members. And back to you, Robin S.